Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the Column EDC Coffee Chat, Coffee with Colleen. We're happy to have on this morning Dr. Nancy Stephanz to join us to talk about home sharing. She's been researching this topic quite a bit and would love to see it implemented in a big way across Column County. So a couple housekeeping items. If you'll keep yourself on mute, so we don't pick up background noise, we'd appreciate that. And this will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel by the end of the day. And Dr. Stephanz is with Mitch there, so she's named Mitch at Clallam EDC. Hello, Mitch. Wave to everyone. And so thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions, you can either raise your hand and we'll call on you, or if you prefer that I ask your question, we will put your question in the chat, or put your question in the chat and I will ask it for you. So with that, Nancy, thank you so much for joining us, and go ahead and take it away.
Okay, so first a little introduction about who I am and why I became interested in this topic. My husband, Dr. Gerald Stephanz, and I moved here in May of 2015, and I became a full-time hospitalist at OMC. Prior to that, we'd worked for 21 years in Utah, and we were nephrologists there, managing patients on dialysis, helping them get transplants, that kind of thing. And so we were well aware from working with the population how critical financial support is, because most patients on dialysis are dirt poor, or they become that way. And so housing was always an issue for that population. When we got here, my husband soon became a volunteer with the volunteer medical clinic here in town. And then a couple years after that became the medical director, which he still is. And so he goes out every Wednesday night to Serenity House and does a medical clinic. So he sees the people who have recently become homeless there, as well as those who are chronically homeless. And since the eviction moratorium expired about 2 years ago, there's been a vast change in the demographic of that new homeless population. Prior to that, especially when he first got here, there was hardly anyone sheltering at Serenity House who was under the age of 50. But now almost every new resident there is over the age of 50. And actually, most of them are women over the age of 60. So when I retired from OMC in December of 2022, I couldn't do medicine anymore, but I hate insurance companies so much, I decided to volunteer for SHEBA. And SHEBA is the statewide health insurance beneficiaries advisors group. And this was a concept that originated here in Washington State about 26 years ago. And it trains volunteers to counsel people about Medicare. And who doesn't have questions about Medicare, right? So we also screen people for Medicaid eligibility. And so when I go to those clinics and work with those people, I see people who are on that knife edge of financial insolvency and are teetering. My husband sees the ones who have fallen off. So in both of those groups of counts, housing is a big issue. And we see everything through the lens of healthcare. And so first of all, just to refresh your memory about the pyramid of needs, to survive, you have to have fresh water, right? That's number one. Number two, you have to have good nutrition. And number three, you have to have shelter. You cannot survive long-term without shelter. And so I started researching and going to the Housing Solutions Committee meetings, which are the first Friday of each month at 9 o'clock in the county commissioner's office, to try to find out why it is so hard to get affordable housing here. And you all know from Colleen's other guest artists and talks about the accelerating cost of things, a prevailing wage issue for use of government funds. And so I thought, what other concept is there that can make a difference in the next couple of years? Because we have, the city is trying hard to get it easier to get permits through, to get new buildings started, but it's going to take time for that to happen. So I had come upon the idea of home sharing back in the pandemic, and I started researching that. And that's what this talk is going to be about, because I think it can make a difference in the next 2 years in Clallam County. So what is home sharing? It is defined as two or more unrelated people sharing a home. And so the homeowner lives there. They rent out one bedroom to someone they are not related to. You're expected to take care of your family. So lots of people home share with their family. Fantastic. but that doesn't count as the official home share definition. Why do it? Well, we want to get the cost of housing down here, and there's some more reasons too. And there we go. Okay. So, especially since the pandemic, as you're all well aware, the cost of mortgages and rents has just skyrocketed. And most seniors and the workforce participants in our county, where we only make about 2/3 of the wages that people in Seattle and Tacoma make, cannot afford to rent an entire apartment or a house or to buy one. But did you know that there are supposedly 44 million empty bedrooms in the USA? This fact was presented in an article called Why Americans Are Moving In with Strangers Twice Their Age, February 24th, 2025 on Vox.net. Also, the fastest growing group of homeless people in the US, not just here, is women over age 60. So why is that? Well, if you think back to the decades when these women were in their working age years, 60s, 70s, 80s, number one, they weren't encouraged to work outside the home. Number two, as always, apparently women are paid less than men. Number three, wages were just minuscule compared to what they are now. And of course, your Social Security checks are based on your total earned income. So I remember back in 1974 when I had my first job, bussing tables in a restaurant. I was 14 years old. I was paid $1.25 an hour. Well, if that was the wage you were paid your whole working life, your Social Security check would be minuscule. Plus, you have to have worked, well, they call it 40 quarters. It doesn't have to be contiguous time, but it's a total of 10 years to get any Social Security benefit at all, or have been married to someone who worked those 10 years, and you had to have been married to him for at least 10 years to get Social Security survivor benefits. So if any of those conditions don't apply to you, you don't get any support from Social Security at all. One of the colleagues I work with in the Sheba clinics helped a woman whose Social Security check was $235 a month. And the Part B premium is $185 a month. So we were able to get her enrolled in Medicaid, so that was covered, and she has help with her medical costs. And thankfully, one of her friends had already taken her into her home and was home sharing with her for free, I imagine. I mean, she couldn't afford to pay anything. Maybe she was able to buy some of her food, but that would be it. But in any case, these women who were encouraged to be caregivers and homemakers and take care of their own children when they were in their working years never had much personal income. About 2 months ago now, President Trump, via executive order, signed an order to curtail utility assistance. I hope that doesn't go through, but if it does, or if they further cut the federal rental assistance program, there's going to be a whole nother crop of homeless people that will need shelter. According to a Justice and Aging email I received on the 8th of May of this year, the federal rental assistance program, of which only about 1 in 3 older adults who need it can get help because that pool of money is not very big anyway. 42% of those recipients are now age 62 or older. And it's not like these people can just, be hired to do another job, especially if they're in their 70s and 80s. Are you really going to hire them to do your DoorDash deliveries? Probably not. If support for these programs are cut more seniors and more people in general who rely on utility assistance and rental assistance will become homeless. And especially in this county, it's not just the elderly who cannot keep a roof over their heads. The Coast Guard has trouble finding housing for their families, especially out-of-town Peninsula College students need a place to stay. The developmentally delayed adult children who cannot work because of their cognitive issues is a new population we have to worry about, because in this legislature's last session, they eliminated new admissions to the only state institution who can house these people once their parents die. So what's going to happen to them? The volunteer hospice folks brought this population to my attention because some of their volunteers also volunteer for Mosaic and are aware of this issue. And then just in general, our workforce, especially in hospitality and nonprofits, all of those lower paid jobs just can't keep a roof over their heads. So we already talked about the survival needed with water, food, and shelter, but there's also very important mental health aspects of having shelter. You have to feel safe to relax. You have to feel safe to sleep well. And if you can't do that, those lead to other problems. And then if you live alone too long yourself, if you're in a big empty house just rattling around yourself, it's so easy to become isolated, become lonely, become trapped in your own thoughts, develop circular ruminative thinking, become depressed. And that, of course, can lead to suicide. And one of my friends who lived up here on 2nd Street until he moved to Bellingham last week, there was a man on his street who was a recluse. He never gave a house key to his house to anyone else on the block. He put up his Christmas lights, and then nobody saw him through the rainy winter. But then, you know, we don't usually see much of each other on the blocks during the rainy seasons anyway. But finally, when it was around Valentine's Day and his Christmas lights were still up, someone contacted the police and they had to break in, and he was dead. And so no one should have to die alone. I don't know the cause of his death. I don't know if he was a suicide, but he was blocks from the hospital, and yet he died alone in his house. And that's just so wrong. Plus, if you live alone and you're elderly, you're going to probably develop trouble with your hearing, but you may not realize it because you just turn up your TV remote. And if you develop cognitive difficulties, say from a little tiny stroke, and you don't realize what those bill things are and that you have to pay your bills every month, you could lose your house just because you don't pay your mortgage payment because you've forgotten that you have to do that. And then I saw a lot of this when I was working at the hospital, fall risk with fractured hips. Everybody in Western Washington, because of our cloud cover, tends to be low on vitamin D levels. That makes your bones very fragile. It makes it much easier to get broken bones. And if you fall and break your hip and you don't have anybody checking on you, who knows how long it's going to be before you're found or before you can drag yourself to your phone to call for help. If you have a head injury, it could be even worse. You could just die right there. So if you actually had a housemate coming and going, you know, a couple times a day, they could call for help if you need it. They could do things if you wanted to go out of town, like water your plants, take care of your dogs so you don't have to pay kennel fees, and any kind of social engagement will improve your quality of life. So I first heard about home sharing 5 years ago on the PBS NewsHour, and Mitch is going to help me share this actual little YouTube video so you can see what I saw.
Cities across the country are struggling with a shortage of housing, but there are millions of spare bedrooms. As Stephanie Lydon from PBS station WGBH explains, Boston has become a launching pad for a new technology that connects people looking for affordable rent with homeowners who have space to spare.
Before she started her graduate program in public health, Abby Herbst got a crash course in math. There are too few apartments for too many people in Boston.
I called actually a real estate agent, and they like wouldn't take me as a client basically because I didn't have the budget for a regular place. And then I was looking farther and farther outside of the city.
But she found a place just a 20-minute walk from campus in this townhouse, complete with a furnished bedroom, fully equipped kitchen, and the homeowner, Brenda Atchison.
What?
Yes, I do. We fell in together very well and very smoothly.
They met online through a home sharing website called Nesterly, designed to connect two generations with compatible needs. Older people who want to stay in their homes but need help.
12-foot ceilings, it's a little hard to heat in the wintertime. So a little extra doesn't hurt.
And younger people who need a place to live. Herbst pays $650 a month, less than half the cost of a studio. And she does chores.
Like I take out the trash, the snow shoveling.
The home sharing idea came to Nesterly founder Noelle Marcus while she was living in Boston.
It was really, really expensive to find housing while I was in graduate school there.
She's now based here in New York.
I think the average one bedroom in New York is over $3,000.
Maybe worse than Boston.
Worse than Boston.
She's cities across the country face an affordability crisis fueled by the same trends, a limited housing supply, and an aging population of homeowners.
We have had over 6,000 people reach out to us from 280 different cities around the world and tell us that they want us to expand to their city.
Which is her goal. For now, Nesterly is available in the Boston area only. People have always rented extra rooms in their homes. Right, so why do they need Nesterly?
Yeah, so according to AARP, 40% of over 45-year-olds say they're interested in renting out a room in their home, but today only 2% are doing it. And we think that's because the right product and the right service did not exist.
Nesterly offers background checks, a payment system, and ongoing support. A one-time housing aid to New York's mayor, Marcus sees the platform as a way to ease the housing shortage and a problem that plagues old and young alike, loneliness.
People don't talk about it a lot, and I didn't actually anticipate it before I came to college, but like I had never eaten meals alone in high school before. If I feel like a little bit lonely or like I want to talk to somebody, I just come downstairs and sit in the kitchen.
She and Atchison both find a perspective they couldn't get from a peer.
You just never know. You just never know what you're going to talk about.
My grandmother lives in New York.
That older and younger people enrich one another's lives isn't a surprise to Noelle Marcus. She moved from Boston to New York mainly to be close to her grandmother.
She's 89 and she's one of my best friends.
An inspiration for a housing innovation that helps two generations under one roof. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Stephanie Leiden in Boston.
And now we're back live.
Great. Good job. That worked out well.
Yes. And I'm so glad that Mitch knew how to do that. So, yeah, they introduced that very well. So let's go on to the next slide. There we go. So if done right, and with a company that can make you feel like it's safe, you're secure, it values integrity, it confirms that people say who they say they are, I think home sharing makes a lot of sense. When I first started asking people about this, both Randy Johnson and Marky Lockhart, who works for O3A, told me about a company called Silvernest. So they gave me the website. It still exists. It looks fantastic. But when you try to talk to them by phone or email or chat, you get no response. So I finally got smart and asked my phone, and I said, Siri, did somebody buy Silvernest? And Siri said, oh yes, Silvernest was bought in 2022. So I don't know why they're still paying if their web's operating here, but they do not operate here anymore. And there was a Seattle Times article in January of this year that mentioned these two companies, spareroom.com and Sunshine Homeshare Colorado. The last one only operates in the Metro Denver area. And there are several companies that you can find who have a very limited geographic scope like that. Spareroom.com started in the UK in 2003. They say they cover the whole US, but they don't do background checks. They don't provide contracts. They don't do dispute resolution. So I don't think that would work well here. It might be okay for younger people, but not for the more mature population that I'm really trying to help. But Nestle's website, again, is very comprehensive in its description of its services, and I really think they would be a good partner if we can get them to come here. They require 2 letters of reference from both the homeowner and from the potential renter. They call the homeowners hosts, they call the renters guests, and they call those references. So you can't just have some AI app make up a story about you that makes you sound like the best thing since sliced bread. They're going to call and check on that. Background checks are 4 different levels of background check through a company called Checker Incorporated. And they do a national criminal search, a sex offender registry and global watch list search, as well as an address history search, because frequent address changes would be a red flag, I guess, and social security verification. So that sounds pretty comprehensive to me. And I think it's more than we could get from our local sheriff's office background check. They do charge the renter a one-time fee of between $95 and $195 at the time a match is made. And I think that variability reflects the variability in rent. and then they keep 2.5% of the monthly rent. Clients use Nesterly's financial system to pay and be paid. So they have the bank information for the renter, they have it for the host, and they take the money out of the renter's account 3 days before the end of the month, keep their 2.5%, and deposit the balance into the homeowner's account on the first of the month. They also have actual human beings who call their clients every month to make sure things are going okay. They will help with dispute resolution to try to resolve any issues. And if the homeowner requests it, they'll do income verification. But again, they still are trying to help people in the low income brackets, both younger people and more mature people. And one of the ways they do this is by what they call a task exchange. And so if you agreed as the renter to do chores, like that young woman was shoveling the snow and taking out the trash, if you did lawn care, if you did cooking or cleaning or transportation, maybe for the more mature homeowner, they would suggest basically a minimum wage exchange. So $15 to $20 less of rent per hour of work done per month. And that would be written into your contract. I also like this. They do not require the first month rent, last month rent, and damage deposit. And Mary Bedke from the Boys and Girls Club brought the importance of this to my attention because she said she pays her employees enough to afford the apartment rent, but they can't get enough cash together to make that first month rent, last month rent, and damage deposit up front. They just can't save that much. If the host wants any of those, they have to add it to the contract and they have to collect it separately on their own. Renter's insurance is not required, but of course is highly recommended. And homeowners are advised to be sure they have home share insurance before they do this. And in this state, that is called a room rental rider. So you would have to call your insurance company if you wanted to do this and add that on if it's not already part of your policy. They do require 50 hosts and a partner agency before they'll be interested in coming here. And right now I brought my little list with me and I've done about 11 talks and I now have 25 names on my list. I'm halfway there. So that's pretty exciting. Also exciting is the fact that about 6 weeks ago, they entered the Bellingham area. This is their first stop in Washington State. And when I first contacted them by email last February, I was saying, "Are you in Washington yet?" And they said, "No, this is what we need." But the city of Bellingham put out an RFP for home sharing, and they selected Nesterly as their partner agency, which again makes me feel better about my assessment of their entire program, that the city of Bellingham agrees with that. Before that, the farthest west they existed was in Nashville, and you saw from the video in 2020, they only covered Boston. So they are spreading. They now cover the entire state of Maine. And Randy Johnson has done a little more investigation about that. And he's found that the rents charged there through their program vary between $500 and $800 a month. I think it's entirely up to the homeowner and the renter what they decide on. But I'm really encouraged because that range of rent would be so helpful here. If we can just get people to get out of the mindset of charging as much as they think they can get, the market rate for a bedroom in their home, we could help so many people. Right now, there are people on Clallam County rental Facebook sites that are trying to charge $1,200, $1,600, $1,800 a month just for a bedroom in their house. And that's not going to help anybody. The furnishedroom.com site, the lowest I've seen there recently was $1,050, which is better, but none of those were even available before October 1st. So that site seems to cater to the tourist trade and filling up those spaces during the summer months with tourists. So we want to target or find hosts that I will call angel hosts who are looking for long-term renters, several months to several years, to help people get out of debt, get their college debts paid off, get their car loans paid off, help them save some money. If you only had to pay $600 a month, you could save some money every month, and that would help you move up the chain of home ownership eventually once our interest rates come down and we get more housing built here. So as you can see, besides the state of Maine, They cover Poughkeepsie County in New York State, and otherwise several cities, and now they're in Bellingham. So again, other things that you could do with that extra income that would help you stay in your own home as long as you want to. Again, for the mature audience that I'm thinking of helping primarily, especially if the spouse dies and they're now living on one Social Security check a month, how are they going to make their property tax payments? How are they going to do home maintenance? If they still have a mortgage to pay, how can they do that? I met one lady whose husband was a veteran. He had a nice pension, and that allowed them to pay their mortgage with what she made as a caregiver. And she recently got her real estate certification, whatever that's called. She's now a realtor, but it takes a while to build up clients in that line of work. And then he died, and now his pension is gone. And so she has what she can earn, and she needs an additional $900 a month just to make her mortgage payment. So this kind of range of rental charges could really help so many people. And maybe your younger housemate, especially if it's younger, or just someone who has worked in construction before, or is someone who has experience fixing things, could do the home maintenance for you. Maybe that could be part of the deal. They'll always give you new ideas. Any new person gives you new ideas, whether they're younger than you or not. And another population I think this could really help would be the single parent family. So especially if they could find someone who has any kind of childhood education experience or training, if they could rent a room in their house to that person, they could help with childcare. And then we could get that single parent back into the workforce. And that would help meet our goals for the Recompete project of getting 1,000 people who are currently unemployed back into the workforce. And I personally can tell you that hiring a retired school teacher is a fantastic idea to help with childcare. My husband and I, when we moved to Utah, had a 3-year-old in our household. We were both working physicians. We knew we could get called into the hospital at any time. We knew we needed a live-in nanny. So we put an ad in the paper and we found a retired school teacher, and she was worth her weight in gold. We didn't have to worry about the child being left alone if we both had to be out of the house for medical issues at the hospital. And she was the one who figured out that my husband's son from his first marriage was colorblind, because she was working with him on his colors and he couldn't tell the difference between red, orange, or green. So it was just a wonderful experience. And I just can't say enough about how much instituting a multi-generational home sharing program could mean for this county. The person could be adopted as an aunt, uncle, or grandparent, and they could help teach those kids their multiplication tables. They could do all kinds of things. They could teach them how to fish. They could teach them how to garden. They could do all kinds of things if they were allowed to share in that household. So not just thinking about people who are in the same age groups living with each other, although of course that's valuable too, and people might trust that more initially. I think of widows helping widows, widowers helping widowers as a first step. But multi-generational, like we saw in the video, is also very valuable. If we can free up apartments with this program so other people can rent, eventually increase in supply is supposed to make costs drop, right? So hopefully that would be helpful. And if we had enough housing, new companies who would hopefully be paying higher wages could come here. They won't come here if there isn't housing available. It would give an increased tax base for the county and the cities. And then once we got this going, there would be new incentives to build or renovate housing. And my next crusade after this one will be doing something with all our vacant properties, but I can't talk about that yet because we're not there yet. Anyway, I see this as a win-win-win for the homeowner, the renter, and the cities and counties. So if people are willing to become a home sharing host, obviously you can't sign my physical sign-up sheets here, but you can contact me at this email. CC stands for Clallam County Home Share Hosts, and notes that is a plural word, HOSTS, at gmail.com. So CC Home Share Hosts at gmail.com. Or Volunteer Hospice gave me the permission to use their phone number, which is 360-452-1511. just say that you want to get on the list of people who are willing to be a home sharing host, and they can contact me. Add your name, your phone number, your email, and the timeline to host. About 40% of the people who have signed my list so far say now. Another 10% are saying soon. So people are interested in this idea if we can come up with a plan that makes them feel safe doing it. If we can't get Nestle to come here, I heard about this from a woman who lives here now, but used to live in Montgomery County, Maryland. And they have had a program of home sharing to help with their senior housing since 1978. So this is an ongoing program. It's more than 50 years old. And that is their website. It's free service to the people who participate in it, but they do pay 2 full-time counselors to help shepherd clients through the whole thing and help match them up. Michelle Higgs is the head of their program. So this is probably a 2.5 FTE kind of solution if we had to pay for that. I really think that Nesterly's program would be cheaper. There was an article in the Cascadia newspaper about the Bellingham program at the end of June. And according to that article, Bellingham's contract with Nestle requires them to pay $55,000 for 2 years of work. So there is upfront cost. That's why we need the partner agency to come up with that upfront cost. And then, of course, the people on the ground here who work for that agency, who are affiliated with it, who can recruit other volunteers to help with the program, help find the hosts and the renters and just talk up the program and get people to sign up for it. So that's what I have in my presentation. What questions do you have?
So anyone have any questions for Nancy?
Yeah, Edward St. Vincent de Paul Society here in Sequim. I've heard your talk earlier with another group you spoke with. Have you approached, I'm thinking of logical partners to collaborate with, and I'm thinking of OMC with their medical people who struggle for housing here, especially single folks. I'm thinking of the school district here in Sequim, and I'm thinking of also Peninsula College with their students as well as staff. I don't know if you've approached them as logical people to buy into the program because they also have a challenge of retaining people out here in this community, which we certainly need to do. I've shared with you, I think, in previous discussion, the challenge we have with people who rent out, who are in their 80s and that and 70s, who have verbal contracts with people, and then it doesn't work out well, and then they fear retribution from people because they start inviting other people into the house. I'm wondering, one of the limitations with this program is, let's say a college student rents a place, can they bring in friends to have get-togethers, or or is that something to be worked out, I guess, with the owner themselves as to what liberties they have?
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point. There was another lady who used to work for the city of Baltimore who referred this book to me. It's called Sharing Housing, a guidebook for finding and keeping good housemates. It's by Anna Marie Pluhar. And this woman actually home shared for about 18 years with up to 3 to 4 different people at a time. And one of her house rules was actually no TV. And yet she found 21 different people to home share with, which I thought was pretty amazing. Anyway, she talks about that issue. If your renter is going to have guests, you have to have very specific house rules about that. And they have to agree. So I don't know how many of you watch The Big Bang Theory, but you know that Sheldon has a list of, like 3 pages of housemate rules. And I don't know if you have to have that many, or you don't have to assign bathroom times, I don't think, but you would have to be clear on whether your renter gets to have overnight guests or where those guests can go in the property. You have to have all this stuff written down. You have to have a written contract. I did mention the issue that you told me about, Ed, to Lindsay Schroman Warren, and he said the boyfriend is not part of the deal, and so he should be removed as a trespasser. And I said, well, there's no written contract, so how can we prove that the young woman who was allowed into the house isn't a trespasser too? And I guess it would just be the homeowner's word. But yeah, that's a real sticky issue. And I've heard of other people too, who started out just letting a grandchild in, and then all their friends are suddenly there. And then, it gets really messy really fast. So I think if you wanted to, this would be something that you'd have to ask Nesterly about. But basically, it gets down to what your contract is going to say and what your contract will allow. But anybody who is interested in home sharing really should read this, because she goes over rules for pets, for children, how to introduce people to each other, and basically suggests a 4-part process where the first time, I mean, she did all this before 2012, before there were all these apps. And so she used Craigslist to find her renters. And so she would just have a description of the bedroom, the location in the city in general, like it was on a bus line or it wasn't, or that kind of thing, and her phone number. And so the first contact was just by phone. Can you understand each other? The second would be meet in a public place, go through your house rules. And she says the most important things to have clearly understood between both parties and agreed to by both parties is the must-have list and the can't live with list. So for example, if you're a non-smoker, one of your can't live with would probably be a smoker, that kind of thing. Have that all spelled out in detail when you meet them in public for the first time and see if it's going to go. If you get a gut feeling that they're not being truthful with you, just forget about it right then and there and go with your gut feeling. The third step would be to invite them to your property to see the room and discuss these things further, make sure it looks like it'll work. And then the fourth step was a trial period of about a week. Just don't let the renter give up their current place. Have them try it for a week in your house and see if it's going to work. And you'll probably find out within that time frame whether you can live with this person or not. So that's the best practical advice I can give you. I have talked to Adam Birnbaum about strengthening ways to make a, quote, bad tenant leave. In this last legislative session, they did try to do something to help homeowners who want to home share by putting in a new rule in the RCW that covers evictions. And the actual number is RCW 59.18.650, and then in parentheses, the number 2, and then in parentheses, little letter I. And it says, if you truly share the home, even just a kitchen or a bathroom with your lodger, you can end the tenancy with a simple 20-day written notice. But the question I get then is, what happens if they're still there on day 21? And so that's what I've talked to Adam Birnbaum about, that we need something more like California's penal code that has a statement basically like that, except it's within any period of a rental period, so up to 30 days notice. And then if the person is still there 7 days after that, then it violates penal code and you call the cops and they make the person go away. Now, where they put them is another issue, because protective orders, from what you and I both heard, Ed, on the Health and Housing Alliance talk from Leslie Bond, who is the executive director for Healthy Families, says that people who do have protective orders against them are not removed from the home unless there's like actual evidence of assault. So that needs to be strengthened too. And I guess, they probably need some place to put people, maybe just for a few hours while the drugs or alcohol or whatever it is wear off, or they, get their temper under control. So that's what's holding people back here, is the fear of the bad tenant. And if we can just get a couple success stories going, that would be great. To answer your first part of your question, I have reached out to several nurses at the hospital, so they're aware I'm doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, I think, do help find housing for other nurses. And Dr. Maxwell is here, so he can pass that word on too. In terms of the college, I reached out to the person who is supposed to be in charge of student housing and just asked her, how many how many do you need help with? And she said, well, it fluctuates, and she wouldn't give me an actual number. So I'll try again with them. That wasn't very helpful. The school district, that's a good idea. I'll try to find someone there to reach out to. I know Sandy Longwell. She goes to my church, and she's on the Board of Education. So I can ask her about that too. Yeah.
So the goal of 50 is actual hosts, correct?
Hosts,
Not,
right.
yes. Okay, not the guests. So have you, I'm trying to think of like focusing on where hosts might be located. Have you contacted the senior center, the Shipley Center, locations such as that? What about the Squim Association of Realtors and Port Angeles Association of Realtors?
I have not reached out to the realtors. I did try to talk to one of the property management companies because I thought some of their clients might actually have room in their houses they'd be willing to home share with, and they won't even answer my emails. So
Okay.
no, I haven't. But this is a list of who I have talked to,
Okay. Good long list.
and I have after this one I have 3 more talks this month, and then I'll have to back off a little bit because open enrollment starts October 15th. Ooh. And so I'll be pretty busy with the Medicare stuff for the next 3 months. But yeah, I'll talk to anybody who will let me talk to them. I've tried to reach out to a lot of the faith communities because again, I can envision the clergy person as being the matchmaker, as the one that people would actually admit that I need help. And were renters and could match up with homeowners within their own congregation. Hopefully they would feel more comfortable with that. And I've been able to talk to Episcopal congregations, Holy Trinity Lutheran here. I'm going to talk to the new First United Methodist pastor on Friday. She just started here in June. And I have not had responses from a whole bunch of others, which disappoints me. I was able to talk to one of the LDS bishops here in town, Jason Bringhurst. The Universalists did not respond to me. The Seventh-day Adventists did not respond to me. I reached out to 4PA. So yeah, I'm the school district. That's my new area. Thank you for the suggestion.
And so in the chat, Lena says, are you able to add the email contact info into this chat so they can contact you that way? I don't think they grabbed it from the slide.
So I
Let
just
Mitch do that.
click on the chat button.
Yeah.
Okay. So CC home share hosts at Gmail.
Okay. And Lori or somebody, will you put the Port Angeles,
Yes.
I think it's PAMLS@olipen.com. I was thinking if you did a presentation or even just an email to the Port Angeles or Squim MLS, so that goes out to 200 or so realtors in the county, and then they often send out newsletters. And they're often looking for good content to share. So if there was, if you sent them just a little newsletter item that they could share, that might get the word out as well.
Yeah, I could do that. I could send them the article I wrote for Danny Steiger's Clallam County Solutions a couple months ago.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Great. That would be an easy link to
And
put
I am
in there.
talking to the Sir Optimus Club on September 19th.
Mm-hmm. And
The one here in
Darlene,
PA. Yeah.
yes, Darlene added neighborhood groups, so homeowners association, that kind of thing. Getting it out that way potentially.
Yeah. Somebody
This
wants to
is
send me your
fabulous
contact.
work that you're doing, and obviously all on a volunteer basis. So thank you so much for what you and your husband both do for our community.
No, I don't do Facebook.
volunteers-
I don't do social media. I just don't want to be a part of that. Sorry. There's too much ugliness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
There's the thank you, Lori, for putting in the information for the Port Angeles Realtor Association is PAMLS@olipen.com. And you could ask them. So they have a blast email system that they share things that goes out to all the realtors emails. So you could send your link to your newsletter out that way.
Okay, great ideas.
Great. All right. Does anybody have any more questions for Dr. Stephanz?
If anybody has
No.
contacts in Jefferson County, I've sent the little link to the article that was in the PDN August 14th to all of their commissioners, because Randy Johnson says 2 of the 3 are very interested in this idea, but I've heard nothing back from them. I was
Okay.
able to make contact with their Housing Solutions Network, but that's it so far for Jefferson County. So,
Well, here's I'll put in the chat the email for the new executive director of the EDC there, and he could get the information out.
okay.
Yeah, there we go.
See it, do you? There it is, David. Okay.
Yep, David Balliff. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for all your work. And I'm not seeing any other questions that I've forgotten. And I did put that article in, Why Thousands of Seattle's Affordable Housing Apartments Became Vacant. The link is there. And so I just found that fascinating that about 20, no, that's wrong. In some places, it's 20% of the apartments are vacant that for subsidized housing in Seattle. But overall, studio and 1-bedroom apartments, the vacancy rate's up to 12% because they've overbuilt and they're charging about market rate. And so there's just too much supply available now in Seattle, not in Colleen or Jefferson.
Let's see, if I was Samantha, I could just wiggle my nose and make them come here.
I know.
It would be fantastic. That shows how old I am.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again, Dr. Stephanz. We really appreciate your time and all the great work you put into this and that you continue to do. So we appreciate everyone's attendance today. And yeah, help us help Nancy get the word out.
Yeah. Tell all
All
your
right.
organizations to be a part of a collaborative effort so we can come up with whatever money Nesterly would want to come here. So
Yeah.
Sharon Maggard from Serenity House and Christy Smith from the United Way and I are trying to reach out to them to actually get that number. But we haven't got a call set up with them yet. So.
Okay, great. All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. And have a great day.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.